just going to give it a couple more minutes to give folks a chance to log on, and then we'll get started. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome everyone to today's session. Before we get started, let's be sure everyone is able to select their language channel. The options available for this session are English, Spanish, or original audio if you would like to hear the audio without interpretation. For people connecting through a computer, you can choose your language channel by clicking on the interpretation icon to the bottom left that looks like a globe. For people connecting on a mobile device, you can choose your language channel by selecting the More option, then Interpretation, then select your language from the available options. With much gratitude to our interpreters today, Claudia, Antonio, and MJ. We also have live captioning available that can be accessed by clicking on the Multimedia Viewer box on the right of your screen. Now we will begin. Hello and thank you for joining us today for our fifth and final session in our series, Culturally Rooted Traditions in Healing and Resistance. My name is Gabriela Zapata Alma and I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Associate Director of the National Center on Domestic Violence, Trauma, and Mental Health. It is my pleasure to moderate our session today featuring Barbara Bethea, a poet, author, and a trailblazing leader in arts-based healing. Now for some troubleshooting tips about this platform. If you get disconnected from today's session at any point, please re-enter the session using the original webinar link that was emailed to you. If the sound is unclear, it is likely due to an unstable internet connection. If this happens to you, feel free to call in for a better audio connection. If you're experiencing technical difficulties, you can directly chat Carla Alegria, Project Manager with our center, for assistance. If you're unable to contact Carla, please reach out to WebEx Tech Support. Carla will post that phone number in the chat box. We welcome you to use the chat feature to share thoughts, questions, and resources throughout the session. Your screen might look a little different depending on what kind of device you're using. Usually the chat box can be found at the bottom right of the screen. You may have to click on the chat icon that looks like a speech bubble to open it. Let's test the chat feature now. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from today. While you do that, I'll share that our center is headquartered in Chicago, the unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi. We invite each person to learn about the land you are connected to. One resource to get started is the website native-land.ca. Something else to know about this software and this session is that we will be using unmuted moderation in today's webinar. So if you would like to share or respond to anything that the presenter has asked or shared, please use the raise your hand feature and we will unmute you. All right, I'm seeing that folks have found the chat. Oh, it's so great to see y'all putting your information in the chat. Hello, hello. Welcome. So now to open our space, we've selected a passage from three-term U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo's most recent book and memoir, Poet Warrior. One night, when Girl Warrior was out traveling in dreaming time, she went looking for the fire. That's where the old one sat and watched and looked after those who were left behind in the earth story. She stood at the edge and waited respectfully to be called over. Fire was friendly, and within it many colors that cannot be found on earth. Fire was singing as it rose up to give back the wisdom of its flames. Girl Warrior was motioned in. She sat down next to her kin. She listened. It was the fire that kept her ear turned toward story. There was a girl, Fire sang, who left us for Earth during star rise. In her pack, she was given poetry. Every gift has tests before they can be opened to be shared. Thank you, everyone. I will now welcome Barbara Bethea to the virtual stage.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm thanking you so much, Carla, for that beautiful story of Native American culture, Native Indigenous people, and that the land that we stand on is first from the First Nations and First People. Well, as was said, my name is Barbara Bethea, and I would just like to start off by saying in this presentation, I will be using a heuristic approach to explore trauma, intimate partner violence, and mental health. The use of story, language, and symbol will be used to explore, reflect, and clarify this topic. This is also an interactive experience between me and thee. So let us begin. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million men and women. 1 in 15 children are exposed to intimate partner violence each year, and 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to this violence. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, on average, more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the United States will experience rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner. Please allow us to have a moment of silence for those persons that have witnessed, experienced, and even lost their lives to intimate partner violence. Thank you. What is wrong, I'll make it right before thee. All thy battles I will fight before thee. Where there's darkness, I will light before thee. And the high places I'll bring down. When you walk along, I lead thee. On the fatness of the land, I'll feed thee. And the mansion in the sky, I'll lead thee. And the high places I'll bring down. Thank you. I always feel that song always brings a good place, brings us into a good place in this space. So I'd like to just share with you a brief overview of my work experiences. I am the first African American registered poetry therapist certified by the International Federation for Bibliopoetry Therapy and licensed by New York State as a licensed creative arts therapist, LCAT. I am the first African American that has that title in the world. So I'm a world-class queen. Can I get it out? World-class queen. Holla. At any rate, so I have been working with individuals diagnosed with mental illness in inpatient, outpatient, and forensic settings. I am currently completing a PhD in expressive therapies at Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I have created a CD titled Like Manna for the Soul, and I am also a co-author of a chapter in a book called Writing Away the Demons, in which I convey my story through writing about my personal traumatic experience with intimate partner violence, which includes some personal poetry. Here's an excerpt from that chapter. I was born into a void. There was nothing for me to hold on to after I slid through the birth canal. I was my mother's 15th child. My natural mother was 39 years old when she had me. At age 4 months, I was given to my foster parents. I grew up in a relatively functional home, no alcoholism, gambling, or irresponsible behavior patterns. My mother was a homemaker. My father was a postal mail carrier. My foster mom was a powerful personality who did not allow dissension and believed in physical discipline. Everything and everyone belonged to mom. And early on, I went seeking my own true self. Perhaps that is how I found my pen. It was a way I could express my thoughts without punishment. At the age of 7, I started writing poems and short stories as part of a school assignment. It was also the very first time that I met my natural mother. The teen years. As I became a teenager, 2 aspects of me evolved. One aspect was the popular life of the party girl. It was important for me to be attractive, well-dressed, and popular. A girl who was the life of the party. The other aspect was a superhero, a rescuer who saved the day. The Supergirl was not necessarily loved, but I was needed. This meant I was important to others. I could not be excised or thrown away. I had a strong desire to be part of the unruly crowd. You know, people who were drinking, fast talkers, loud and disruptive ways. Perhaps I just wanted to feel closer to the people I came from. Or perhaps these were personality traits imparted through the womb, passed on through my parental gene pool. Well, I would get my chance to be part of the unruly crowd. All right. I met Lafayette at a neighborhood party 1 week before my 17th birthday. Months later, I would find out he had just gotten out of jail that week. Here was I, a lonely, horny, depressed, attention-starved teenager looking for love in all the wrong places. He just seemed so right. How could I say no? I was too afraid and too lonely. I had someone to call my own, and now I needed to keep him home. More than the smiles he seems to wear or the style of his hair, you need to know the heart inside, the thoughts that flow within his mind. As time went by, I discovered that I had hit the jackpot. Not only was he into street life, but he was also an intravenous drug user. Wow, I made it to the big time. He became my first rescue mission in my life. I was going to help him because he was a person that no one else seemed to understand better than me. He began to ask for and take money from me. And when I didn't have it, it became abusive and slapped or threatened me with other women. I still couldn't say no. I was in way over my head. I began smoking reefer, but that was as far as I went. I wasn't that curious. More than the secrets he reveals, more than the way he makes you feel, you need to know what makes it real, what makes the matter if it isn't real. 8 years of separation from Lafayette because I'd left. I saw his aunt on the train one day. I gave her my contact information. She relayed the message. About a year later, we reunited. He had lived in the South for most of those years and had left the drugs alone, but not the alcohol. I had a daughter by another abusive partner. My daughter and I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And one day, Lafayette flew into New York and began to live with us. I wasn't ready for the transition, but once again, I couldn't say no. At first, things were calm, but then the change took place. He began to come home later and later, or not at all. And when he did come in, he was angry and began to yell and curse at me, followed with a physical assault. He became an addicted, womanizing, abusive bastard again. That's an excerpt from the chapter, which is entitled The Woman Who Changed a Triangle into a Circle. And the book is Writing Away the Demons. You can have access to that book, writing to me. I can get a copy of it to you for a small fee, of course. However, so what am I conveying about this story? What do you think was going on? What are some of the aspects of this story? Somebody would like to chime in. What do you think that I'm sharing about the personality that I had and the influence of how trauma was affecting me at this time? Raised hands.
Hey, Barbara, it's Gabriella. I'm not seeing any raised hands yet. We are inviting folks to raise your hand if you'd like to be unmuted, as well as feel free to respond in the chat.
Any responses? No?
We do have a raised hand now.
Okay.
All right. So you are now unmuted.
The question is Janice.
Hi, Janice. What did you say?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, the question was, as I read that excerpt from the book, I'm describing myself as a victim at that time. I'm asking, what do you think were some of the aspects that I was exhibiting in that trauma and through that trauma?
I believe that you was experiencing fear and
Okay,
lack of self-confidence.
okay, okay. Thank you so much for that. Anyone else?
Yes, here comes Sonia.
Hello. I believe that you was experience lack of self-worth, of course, fear.
Mhm.
And I believe that you loved him more than you loved yourself.
Ah, I like that. Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you so much, Janice. That's right. It's a lack of sense of self and also the silence that takes place inside of that. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on. At this point, I hope you brought a pencil and paper with you. That is always something to bring into a space when we're at a workshop, seminar, and otherwise. So hopefully everybody has a piece of paper and a pencil because I have a little exercise that we're going to do. And I want to try to embody a little bit more of the understanding of what someone that is experiencing intimate partner violence, domestic violence, and what they go through. So if you don't mind, please indicate that you're, raise your hand if you're sure that you have some paper and a pen, please.
Oh, yeah, folks are ready.
Okay, they're ready. All right, let's go. I'm not going to do this entire exercise, but for the exercise, I want you to get a sense of what this would be. And I can also share this particular exercise with you later on. We could send it out in the chat or in the link. Okay, so this is called the Essential Connections Exercise. And I'm going to do is ask you a series of questions, personal questions, and please know you do not have to share your answers with anyone. So I'm not asking you to put any answers in the chat. So let's just be open and free with these particular questions. Okay. First question will be, what is your main source of information about world and local news? For example, do you get it from the New York Times, channel whatever, news, office gossip? How do you get, what is your main source of information about world and local news? Please write that down. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. Who is the most important person in your life? Who is the most important person in your life? Okay. What groups do you belong to? What groups do you belong to? Write down one or two. It's okay. Next question. What is the one thing you've worked hardest for in your life? What is the one thing you've worked hardest for in your life? Next question. What is your greatest source of joy? You bring me joy. What is your greatest source of joy? And the last question I'm going to ask you is, what is the place that you call home? What is the place that you call home? Okay, so for this exercise, we're just going to use these questions. And I'm going to ask you to just look over your list and letting you know you have just created a picture of the most important elements of your life. So look over your list, get a sense of some of the most important elements in your life. Now I'm going to ask you to please cross off one thing off of that list. It'd be anything. Just cross off one thing. And you must do it. Come on. You got to do it. Cross one thing off. Trusting that you did. It doesn't take a long time to get the New York Times off your list. I'm sure that's what you chose first. It's paper. Okay. So if you said the New York Times is your main source for information, you just crossed it off the list, then you never get to read the New York Times or whatever that news station was again. You don't get to partake in that. You just took that element out. Okay. Can't even look at the headlines. Okay. And if it was a person that you took off, you will never see that person again. Now I'm going to tell you that there's no exceptions. And I'd like you to cross off 3 more things off of your list. And there's no exceptions. Please do so. I think we're getting in the thick of it now, huh? How's everybody doing? Sorry that I can't see your beautiful faces. Hopefully you took 3 more things. And remember, oh, yeah, you shared. Yeah, I like that emoji. Maybe let me see the emoji. You can put an emoji in the chat. That's a good way to get a barometer about how people are feeling about crossing these things off your list, knowing you'll never see them again. So many other things. Yes, another loss, another hurt. Yes. Savior complex, huh? Okay. You behave insecure. I like that. Seeking attachment and desire. Yes. Yes, I was. Ooh. So I see some of the emojis. That was what I crossed off. Well, me too. Bye, NPR. All right. It's hard. My lack of attachment is shining. Okay. All right, Sister Barbara, this is hard. Okay. I can't. Too many of them are interconnected. But you got to cross them off. This is not up for discussion. It has to come off. Thank you. Yes. All right. And now for the moment that we've all been waiting for, please take your pen and cross everything off that list. Everything. Everything must go. This makes me nervous. Well, yeah, yes. I can't. Too many of them are interconnected. Absolutely. Yes. No, I am now empty. Yes. Yes, we are. Yes, this is hard. And the purpose of this, if you don't mind, as you cross everything off, hopefully you crossed it off. and I'd like to understand, why do you think we did this activity with you today? You can unmute and tell me, please. Why do you think we did this activity?
All right, we have Kathleen raising her hand. I'm going to unmute you now.
Help us create the empathy and the understanding and the compassion for our victims,
Sure.
survivors.
That's good. That's good. There's no right or wrong. I hope I said that in the beginning. There's no right or wrong. If that's making you shy, to examine what our sense of self is, okay?
Now we have Sonia with her hand raised.
Yes. Someone else?
There we go.
A lot of people don't have anything to turn to, nothing. They don't have no spirituality, nothing spiritual to connect to, no family to connect to, no TV, because the abuser will put them in a room and that's it. All they have is themselves.
Yes. 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 Thank you for sharing that. To be wiped away clean.
Yes.
Janice wrote that. To be wiped away clean. Okay. All right. And someone else experienced the deepness of loss. Loss. To examine what our sense of self is. Okay. None of this makes up who I truly am. No, it doesn't. But, all right, let me just, for time's sake, I want to move on as well to give you another sense of what this was, the purpose of this. This is what you are asking someone in an abusive relationship to do when you ask him or her to leave her partner. Think about how many things a person may have to give up forever if he or she chooses to leave an abusive relationship and relocate, even go into a shelter and hiding where she can't go back to those old familiar places because of the complex dynamics of abuse and being isolated. The abusive partner is often the main or most influential source of information about the world, in control of finances, even their greatest source of joy, as the abuse is often cyclical with the honeymoon phases. So I wanted to bring that and emphasize that particular aspect, and in terms of my story, going back to the abuser. And something that is often left out of the discussion, we who are clinicians or those that are working with people who are in this population, may have mental health, may have substance use disorders as well. That abuser may be using that to leverage and keep that person in that abusive situation as well. You know, threatening or telling the person who has mental health, nobody's going to believe you, or using substances to keep the person submissive, you know, to the abuse. So there's a lot that goes into it as well. So I wanted to bring this exercise to your attention as someone had emphasized and expressed, that to have empathy, to understand, and especially the communities out in the community, people are always asking, well, why does she keep going back? Well, guess what? This is one way to look at it. I know that I went back several times into that situation, stayed way past gone. So do you have any comments or anything else that anyone wants to share at this point before I move on?
Yeah, we have a hand up here. I'm going to unmute you now.
Powerful, powerful element of this training so far. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I see Pam also posted, wow. Yes, just one word, wow. We have to begin to understand, as we may have people and family members, friends, you know, but being able to have a better understanding and looking at what this particular situation is and how it informs or comes at the for the abuser, I'm sorry, the abused person, you know, how they are holding all of this and trying to make decisions and navigate through this traumatic experience. And then, you know, looking at what the options are. There aren't enough shelters. Let's be very clear about that. There are not enough shelters, and especially for single persons. That's little or none. You may have a better opportunity if you are a person that has children, but in terms of single shelters or what have you, that's almost non-existent. So that's another reason. And you know, as someone said, they have nowhere to go and nothing to hold on to, and this is the only thing that they have. Okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to talk about advocacy. I am a former advocate in Mount Sinai's Sexual Assault Violence Intervention, which is called SAVI, the SAVI program, which trained me to be a certified rape intervention crisis advocate and support to victims of intimate partner violence. I was on call with SAVI for 6 years, and I plan to resume this work in the near future. As an on-call advocate, I would go to the emergency departments in Mount Sinai Hospital sites and provide comfort to a survivor that was brought into that emergency department. And during those first hours after a sexual assault or intimate partner violence experience, as they grappled with these traumatic experiences, and most times alone, there was no family, there was no friends. Most times, people who have suffered from this particular experience, they are ashamed. There's also the guilt. They are not going to communicate with anyone outside to say exactly what happened. So as an advocate, I got to sit down and to maybe just listen, just to hold a hand, bring a sandwich, something to drink, while the police officers came in to interrogate what were the details. And also then the forensics, sexual forensic exam, where they take evidence to identify what has occurred. Pictures being taken of the person that has just suffered this traumatic experience. So you're now exposed to all of these people coming in, staring at you as if you're under a microscope, or the freak show, if you will, you know? And so I acted as an advocate to try to give it normalcy and balance. So I implore you, wherever you are, maybe such programs exist. Maybe you can start such a program for this population. Doesn't take a lot. It just takes that kind of empathy, a willingness to be there, and a commitment to make a difference in our communities. There's so many things that we can do to change the tide of intimate partner and domestic violence in our communities and working with this population. So working as an advocate helped to bolster my empathy for others, deepen my knowledge base, and an invaluable experiences working with these populations. Volunteerism is an important part of professionalism. At least that is what I was taught in my undergraduate program in Empire State College in New York City. I have also volunteered time to provide workshops in intimate partner violence shelters through the Volunteers of America. There's opportunities. Especially if you're a survivor, work on your own ish first, honey. Ain't nothing like having 2 clients in the room. So you got to work on your stuff first. Be prepared so that as you're talking to someone and their trauma doesn't re-victimize you. All right, so in my work in a forensic setting, I currently work at Rikers Island. But in the forensic setting, I've also had the pleasure of presenting an intimate partner violence workshop for the female detainees, which resulted in a positive expression of hope and well-being for them. They wrote letters to themselves. I had them to write love letters to themselves. It was a beautiful experience. I'm not able to share that kind of information with you because it's personalized writings or what have you. But there's just so many different ways that poetry therapy is used and showing up in these particular settings. So I want to jump over now just a little bit. I know time is moving quickly, quietly, and without my permission. Slow down, clock. I ain't ready, you know. So I'm going to just give some definitions around what is poetry therapy, because I'm sure that's a new term to most of you, like poetry therapy. Maybe she works with sick poems. Not. Anyway, so Poetry therapy is the term is poetry therapy, applied poetry facilitation, journal therapy, bibliotherapy, bibliopoetry therapy, and poetry journal therapy, which reflect the interactive use of literature and writing to promote personal growth and emotional healing. That's a mouthful. We use writing for healing. We help people to express thoughts and feelings that they otherwise would not have access to when you simply ask, "So, how are you today?" Guess what? That's a blank question. Fine, right? That's not going to work. We want to get underneath. So sometimes with poetry therapy, it helps you to access other thoughts and feelings that you otherwise would not be able to access just with just common questions. So in addition to poetry, and poetry therapy applies all forms of written and spoken language, including story, myth, folk, and fairy tales, and other genres of poetic expression, such as journal, memoir, and narrative. There's also the RES model, which is called the receptive, prescriptive, expressive, creative, symbolic, ceremonial, which was developed by a man named Nick Mazza. And in use of those, the receptive prescriptive is focusing on using literature to help people to express themselves. The expressive creative is a client writing in the practice. And symbolic ceremonial, we use metaphors, rituals, and storytelling. So that is the working definition of poetry therapy. Now let's touch on addiction. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, the definition of addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addiction use substances or engage in behaviors that become compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences. So that is the working definition according to the American Society of Addiction Medicine. Last but not least, what is trauma? Trauma. Trauma has been defined by the APA dictionary, the American Psychological Association Dictionary of Psychology, as any disturbing experience that results in significant fear, helplessness, dissociation, confusion, or other disruptive feelings intense enough to have a long-lasting negative effect on a person's attitudes, behavior, and other aspects of functioning. So trauma can be long-term, it can be short-term. Not everyone that goes through a traumatic experience has post-traumatic stress. That's the terminology that is used with people who have those expressions of the behavior and dissociation, what have you. There are also 6 key principles of trauma-informed approach: safety, trustworthiness, transparency, peer support, collaboration, and mutuality, empowerment, voice and choice, cultural, historical, and gender issues. Those are 6 key principles of trauma-informed approach. So I have used poetry therapy as a trauma-informed approach, working with people who are survivors of intimate partner violence, addictions, as well as in mental health. A small overview of the neuroscience of healing. Individuals diagnosed with post-traumatic stress agonize with an overload of images, sensations, and behavioral impulses, which is part of implicit memory, and dissociation from context, concepts, and understanding, which is part of the explicit memory. So in other words, people get bogged down with an overload and over response to sensory, their external stimuli. And then that also impacts how they think, feel, and act within. So that's a little bit about how trauma and post-traumatic stress. Then trauma in the brain. I'm not going to go through all of that, but in this post-COVID-19 era, there's a part of the brain that is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is like the smoke alarm to the brain. And when the amygdala is set into alarm, it then, when it's in calm mode, it's like this. It's a balled up fist. But when it is stimulated and there's a traumatic or something danger approaching, it opens up like this. So those of us that might be working in the field with people that have had addiction, have had traumatic experience, and even mental health, they may be responding like this. The threat of COVID-19 has not passed. So therefore, they are highly hypersensitive, hypervigilant. They may be acting out. Substance abuse has increased. They may have some chaotic behaviors that are coming out, and any other triggers that might manifest themselves. So we as professionals need to have at least a working knowledge of how trauma shows up and how to use a trauma-informed practice with these types of populations. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that as well and to leave you with another consideration. I want to do a little writing exercise with you if we can. Yes, I see time is flying. Would just somebody tell the clock to slow down, please? I know I ain't talking that fast, am I? Anyway, okay. So this is a poem that I wrote previously. And it talks about wanting to improve how I interact with others. The name of the poem is I Want to Get to My Better Me. I want to get to my better me, the one that has not been crippled by the pain of the past. I want to get to my better me, the one that is not consumed by the fears that tell her she's never going to be good enough. She's never going to be loved by another. She's never going to feel that great about her life because she's had experience with such pain. I want to get to my better me, the one that smiles into the morning sun, the one that welcomes her being into the brightness of day, the one that sings, writes poetry, and dances under rainbow skies of, I love you, Queen. I love you, sacred blessing. I love you and the you of you. See, I want to get to my better me, the one that smiles into the, the one that doesn't accuse, maim, and blame others for the things that have happened to the past me, which show up in crippling and defeating ways. I want to get to my better me, the one that shows fortitude, resilience, and that indomitable spirit that the ancestors gave us through every inconceivable victory. I want to get to my better me, the one that shows fortitude, resilience, and that indomitable spirit that my ancestors gave. I want to get to my better me, the one that gives praise and worships under the heavens of the Almighty God that delivered my life from the jaws of death. When there was no answer and my spirit was riddled with darkness and hopelessness. I want to get to my better me that breaks down the defenses that fence me into the walls of unforgiveness and unrelenting pain like an echo chamber in my spirit, mind, and body. Be done with this trauma. I want to get to my better me, the one that is writing this message with the hopes that countless others will wish to find their truth, their sense of self through a righteous moment like this. I want to get to my better me. So there's a writing prompt, and I'd like you to do this. Inside of that chat, if you don't mind, I would like you to write, I want to get to my better me, and put a meaning behind that. I want to get to my better me, please. Thank you, Kimberly McNear. Me too, yeah. I want to get to my better me. One who can stand and show the world who I truly am without moving away from the path. All right, thank you. I want to get to my better me, the one who recognizes she's always enough. Yes. I want to get to my better me, the one who dances footloose and fancy free. Yes. I want to get to my better me in this chat. I want to get to my better me and stay out of my head and keep my in my heart. That's right, girl. What? I want to get to my better me. The one who is comfortable in her own skin. Absolutely. I want to get to my better me by listening better with intent. Yes. I want to get to my better me. The me everyone else sees. Yes. I want to get to my better me, the one who is just me and in enough. Yes. I want to get to better me when who can be both warrior and dancer. Absolutely, Nanthalia. Thank you. I want to get to my better me who isn't scared of their voice. Yes. I want to get to my better me, the one who knows true rest. Yes. Go on, Chad. I want to get to my better me, the one who says yes without second guessing their intuition. Yes. I want to get to my better me, the one who can stay present in one place at a time, everywhere, and with everyone. Yes. I want to get to my better me by becoming everything God says I am. Prove to the world I win. Yes. I want to get to my better me, the one who isn't afraid of being loud and proud. You better scream, girl. What? I want to get to my better me that understand that being enough doesn't have to equate to a status or achievement. Just being me. Yes. Fire. Yes. Ah, I want to get to my better me, the one who can. I want to get to my better me, the one who is stopping the generational trauma with me. Yes. Thank you, Paris. Ashe, 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 Ashe. I hope I got everybody. If I didn't say yours, Ashe, yes. If I didn't say yours, say it yourself. Raise your hand and we'll unmute you. I want to get to my better me with grace. Yes, ma'am. I'm loving this. Y'all are all poets, aren't you? Isn't that something? Isn't that nice? Wow. Beautiful. I say 2 snaps. Yes. Come on, let's get our snaps on. That's right. I'm loving it. I'm loving you. I'm over snap here snapping. That's right. I love it. I love it. I love this. So that's basically, I'm gonna wrap this up, bring it around the table. We got to our better me's. Please, I hope everybody put it in the chat. And the bottom line of it is that a day at a time, I wish you well in your journey to self as you help others to find a better path for themselves. This was a poetry therapy moment. I hope to see you again on the path of healing, somewhere in this great beyond. And I thank you so much for listening today. And your interaction has given me more understanding, more definition to the work that I do, which continues to be well needed in our communities, especially with people of color. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Gabriella and Carla. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. My goodness. Woof. I feel rejuvenated. I feel in my spirit. I feel connected to all y'all. Barbara, thank you for sharing your light, your wisdom, your lived experience, and above all, your glorious voice and your glorious poetry. Thank you. I'm taking away deeper empathy and pure inspiration as we start to wrap up our session. But we can't go yet because we have a question. And if folks have other questions, please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. But the one question that we've gotten multiple times so far is if there's a way to follow up with you, if you are open to receiving contact, or what's a way that people could stay connected with you and hear more about what you're doing in the future.
I am putting my phone number in the chat, and my email. So both of them are there now in the chat. And thank you for wanting to follow up and be a part of my world and my life and my work. I look forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to get to my better me to silence those who wrote me off and said I will never be nothing. Absolutely. And you are a beautiful queen, or whatever you choose to call yourself. Thank you so much for this. You're welcome. Gracias. Thank you so much. Yes, gracias, gracias. De nada. Please read out to me justice for read out to me.
That was one of the many folks who wanted to follow up with you. So I think they have your info now and we'll follow up.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Here's a question. How can I start my own group?
Sarah. Well, one thing that I'm not, and I'll never minimize what your credentials are because anyone can start something. I can honestly tell you that years ago, my apartment was a group for women in my community. I lit a candle and put it on the floor, and it was a prayer circle for people to just walk in and just talk about what's going on. Now, if you're not comfortable with something like that, you might want to go to a community center. In order to do group work, you need to understand something about group dynamics. That's important as well. And you need to have a strong sense of who you are. But a group starts wherever you stand. It's on the park bench, talking to a group of people. There's a group. Where two or three are gathered, there's a group in the mix. So I am a licensed professional. I have been doing group work since I began this process. But I will never minimize who can and cannot do a group, because in our communities, we need every hand on board. So if you have the capacity to be able to be empathetic, an active listener, because the group means that you are listening. It's not about you. It's about the persons in front of you and giving them a chance to articulate their feelings and thoughts. So, group.
Yes. So, and Barbara, this is completely up to you. There are some requests for an encore, another song. Totally up to you. It's also fine to wrap up, but I thought I wouldn't let the question die with me.
Okay, so this is a song by Vicky Yohe. It's my rendition of it. But I'm definitely always in awe of everyone that I feel that my higher power, I call God, places me in front of. I don't believe it's by happenstance that 53 people are on this particular seminar today. I think we were all led to this part. So, your presence amazes me. Your glory surrounds me. When I walked in this room, I felt your hands upon me. To think how great you are. Still you would touch someone like me. It's your mercy and grace. You amaze me. Your presence amazes me. Ooh, thank you, Lord. Your glory surrounds me. When I walked in this room, I felt your hands upon me. To think how great you are. Still you would touch someone like me. It's your mercy and grace. You, everyone, you, everywhere, you amaze me.
Oof, thank you. Thank you. Folks, the final session in our culturally rooted traditions in healing and resistance. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you so much to our team at the National Center on Domestic Violence, Trauma, and Mental Health. And thank you to all of our interpreters, Claudia, Antonio, and MJ. And thank you everyone that joined us today. As a follow-up, you'll receive some information, you'll receive a survey link, as well as a link to this recorded session. Please feel free to share, and you can access it anytime on our website. For folks looking for certificates of attendance for your time today, those will also be made available. Thanks again, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Blessings to everyone, and thank you so much again, Carla and my darling Ms. Zapata. Thank you so, so much for everything. Enjoy your day. Be safe. Get out there and work. Do that work, y'all. Okay, thank you. Blessings.